She signed a contract marriage in tears. One unexpected kiss changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, it is free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to the main character. She sits at the long glass table, the room too quiet for a place this expensive. The air smells faintly of polished wood and fresh ink. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretches for miles, all steel and light, a world that has never belonged to her. In front of her lies a thin stack of papers, clipped neatly at the corner. The title at the top reads, Marriage Agreement. Her name is already printed there. All she has to do is sign. Her fingers curl around the pen, but they do not move. A tear slips free before she can stop it, falling straight onto the page. The ink does not blur. The paper does not soften. Nothing in this room reacts to her fear. Across from her sits him. He is a billionaire. A man used to boardrooms, deadlines, and decisions that move markets. His suit fits perfectly. His posture is calm, controlled, almost detached. He does not raise his voice. He does not rush her. He simply waits, hands folded, eyes steady, as if this moment is no different from signing any other contract. This is not personal, he says quietly. It is business. Those words hurt more than he knows. She swallows and nods, because nodding is easier than speaking. Because if she opens her mouth, the truth might spill out. That she does not want this. That she is terrified. That she would give anything to stand up and walk away. But she cannot. Behind her are unpaid bills stacked on a kitchen counter in a small apartment she is about to lose. A hospital notice she has folded and unfolded until the edges are soft. A family that depends on her being strong, even when she is breaking. This contract is not a dream. It is a lifeline. He slides the papers a little closer. Not aggressively, not kindly either. Just enough to remind her that time is moving forward, whether she is ready or not. There are rules, he continues, his voice even. This marriage is for appearances only. No emotions, no expectations. We will play our roles in public. In private, we remain strangers. When the term ends, we go our separate ways. Strangers. The word echoes in her chest. She looks at the line where her signature belongs. The pen trembles in her hand. Another tear falls, then another, dotting the paper like small, silent confessions. He notices. Of course he does. But he does not reach for her. He does not soften his tone. This is the man he has learned to be. Controlled. Untouchable. Safe from feelings that complicate outcomes. If you agree, he says, everything you are worried about will be taken care of. She closes her eyes. This is the moment. The one that will divide her life into before and after. With a shaking breath, she lowers the pen and signs her name. The sound of ink against paper is soft, almost gentle. But inside her, something shatters. She slides the contract back toward him, her vision blurred with tears she no longer tries to hide. He picks it up, glances at the signature, and nods once. Efficient. Final. From this moment on, she is his wife. Not because of love, not because of choice, but because she had no other way out. And neither of them knows it yet, but this cold, carefully written agreement is about to be broken by something no contract can control. A single, unexpected kiss that will change everything. The contract is signed, but the weight of it does not lift when she stands up. If anything, it grows heavier with every step she takes out of that glass tower and back into the real world she has been trying to hold together. The city feels louder now. The air feels thicker. Her phone vibrates in her hand before she even reaches the curb. It is the hospital. She answers on the second ring. The nurse speaks gently, but the message lands like a blow. The insurance extension is running out. The payment deadline cannot be pushed again. They need confirmation by the end of the week, or treatment will be delayed. She thanks the nurse, hangs up, and stares at the traffic rushing past her, as if nothing in her life has just cracked open. This is why she signed. Not because she wanted wealth, not because she dreamed of marrying a billionaire, but because the world does not pause for people who are drowning quietly. Bills do not care about pride. Hospitals do not accept hope as payment. She walks the last 3 blocks to her apartment instead of taking the bus, trying to slow her breathing. The building greets her the way it always does, with flickering hallway lights and peeling paint near the stairs. Inside her apartment, the silence presses in. On the small kitchen table sit 3 unopened envelopes. She does not need to open them to know what they say. Overdue, final notice, past due. She sinks into the chair and finally lets herself cry. Not loud, not dramatic. Just silent tears that fall onto her hands as she thinks about how close she came to losing everything. About how many nights she stayed awake calculating numbers that never added up. About how she promised herself she would never ask anyone for help. And yet, here she is, married to a man she barely knows. A man whose world is so far removed from this apartment that it might as well exist on another planet. The next morning, a black car waits outside her building. It is too polished for the street, too quiet, too intentional. The driver steps out, opens the door, and addresses her by her new last name. She flinches when she hears it spoken aloud for the first time. The ride to the estate is silent. She watches the city change through the window, brick and concrete giving way to iron gates and long stretches of green. When the car finally stops, she hesitates before stepping out. The house is enormous, not flashy, but commanding. It does not need to impress anyone. It already knows its place in the world. Inside, everything smells clean and untouched, as if no one truly lives here. A housekeeper greets her politely and shows her to a bedroom at the far end of the hall. It is larger than her entire apartment. There is a private bathroom, a walk-in closet, fresh flowers on the dresser. She stands in the doorway, unsure where to put herself. Later that evening, she sees him again. He is standing by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. He looks different here, less like a deal maker, more like a man alone in a space built to hold power, not comfort. Dinner is quiet, civil, careful. He explains expectations in the same calm tone he used in the boardroom. Public appearances, charity events, family gatherings. She will be introduced as his wife. The press will ask questions. She will smile. She will say very little. In private, he reminds her, nothing changes. She nods, gripping her fork a little too tightly. What she does not say is that everything has already changed, because tonight, when she lies alone in a bed that feels far too big, she realizes something terrifying. She did not just sign away her freedom. She signed herself into a life where pretending might be harder than surviving ever was. And the man sleeping in the room down the hall has no idea that the woman he married out of necessity is already standing on the edge of something fragile, something dangerous, something that no contract can protect them from. Morning arrives quietly in the mansion, filtered through tall windows and pale curtains that barely move. She wakes before the sun, not because she is rested, but because her body refuses to forget where she is. This is not her apartment. This is not her life. She sits on the edge of the bed, feet sinking into a carpet softer than anything she has ever owned. For a moment, she allows herself to breathe, just once. Then she stands, smoothing her clothes as if someone is watching, even though the room is empty. Breakfast is served at exactly 7. He is already there. He stands at the kitchen island, scrolling through messages on his phone, dressed in a crisp shirt and tailored pants. Everything about him looks deliberate, controlled, as if nothing in his life ever happens by accident. "Good morning," he says, polite but distant. She returns the greeting, her voice quieter than she intends. They sit across from each other, separated by polished marble and an invisible line neither of them crosses. The housekeeper pours coffee and leaves. The silence that follows feels heavier than words. After a moment, he places a thin folder on the counter between them. "The contract outlines most of this," he says, "but I prefer clarity." She nods, her stomach tightening. "These are the boundaries," he continues. "We present a united front in public. We attend events together. We do not contradict each other in front of anyone." She listens carefully, hands folded in her lap. "In private," he says, pausing briefly, "we respect distance. There will be no physical intimacy, no emotional expectations. We sleep in separate rooms. You are free to live your life as long as it does not interfere with the agreement." The words are precise, clean, almost kind in their detachment. She forces herself to speak. "And if someone asks?" "You smile," he replies. "You say we are private people." It sounds simple when he says it like that. He looks at her then, really looks at her, as if assessing whether she understands the weight of what she agreed to. This arrangement protects us both, he adds. It keeps things uncomplicated. Uncomplicated. She almost laughs at the word. Instead, she nods again. After breakfast, he leaves for work without ceremony. No lingering glances. No awkward goodbyes. Just the quiet click of the door closing behind him. The house feels even larger after he is gone. She wanders through rooms she does not need, touching nothing, careful not to leave evidence of herself behind. Everything here feels curated, as if the house was designed for appearances, not living. Later that afternoon, a stylist arrives, then another. Clothes are brought in, shoes, jewelry she is afraid to touch. They call her Mrs., followed by his last name, and each time the title lands strangely in her ears. She watches herself in the mirror as they prepare her for her first public appearance as his wife. The woman staring back looks composed, elegant, almost confident. She barely recognizes her. That evening they attend a charity dinner downtown. Cameras flash the moment they step out of the car. His hand settles lightly at her back, not intimate, just enough to guide her forward. It is the first time he touches her. The contact is brief, controlled, and yet her heart stumbles. She smiles because she has been instructed to smile. She nods, greets people, listens as he speaks effortlessly to donors and executives. He introduces her as his wife, his voice steady, his expression unreadable. She plays her role perfectly. Inside, she feels hollow. On the drive home, neither of them speaks. When they reach the house, he opens the door for her, then steps back. "You did well," he says, his tone professional. "Thank you," she replies. He hesitates for a fraction of a second, as if considering something, then turns down the hall toward his room. She stands alone in the entryway, the echo of the evening still ringing in her ears. The rules are clear, the boundaries are set. But as she lies awake later that night, staring at the ceiling, she realizes the most dangerous part of this arrangement is not the contract itself. It is how easily she is learning to pretend, and how one day, pretending might no longer be enough to protect either of them. The wedding happens faster than she expects. There is no long engagement, no time to adjust. Just a quiet announcement to the press, a carefully selected venue, and a date placed neatly on the calendar as if it were another business obligation. 3 weeks after signing the contract, she stands in a private dressing room, staring at herself in a mirror framed with soft lights. The dress fits her perfectly. Of course it does. Nothing here is left to chance. The fabric is heavy, elegant, and far more expensive than anything she has ever worn. A stylist adjusts the train while another smooths a loose strand of hair behind her ear. They smile at her, telling her how lucky she is, how beautiful she looks. She smiles back because that is what she has learned to do. Inside, she feels strangely detached, as if this is happening to someone else. Outside the room, she can hear the low murmur of guests arriving, influential names, important faces, people who read about her for the first time this morning, and will forget her just as easily tomorrow. This wedding is not about love, it is about optics. When the doors open, the music begins, slow and deliberate. Every step she takes down the aisle feels rehearsed, even though she has never practiced it. Cameras click softly, eyes follow her. At the altar, he waits. He looks composed, exactly as she expected. His expression is calm, unreadable, the same face he wears in boardrooms and interviews. When their eyes meet, there is no surprise, no visible emotion, just acknowledgement. She reaches his side, and together they turn to face the officiant. The vows are brief, carefully written, neutral enough to mean nothing and everything at the same time. Words like partnership and respect are chosen instead of love. When it is time to exchange rings, his fingers brush hers for just a second. The contact is accidental, almost meaningless, and yet her breath catches. He slides the ring onto her finger smoothly, without hesitation. When it is her turn, her hands tremble slightly, but she manages. The ring settles against his skin, solid and final. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant says. The room seems to hold its breath. He leans in just enough to meet the expectation. The kiss is light, brief, and distant, polite, public, over before it can mean anything. Applause fills the space. She smiles because everyone is watching. The reception that follows is flawless. Speeches are delivered, glasses are raised, people congratulate them with practiced enthusiasm. She learns quickly which questions to answer and which to deflect. He stays close, but never too close. His hand occasionally rests at her back when cameras are near, then disappears the moment they are alone. Every movement feels choreographed. When the night finally ends, they leave together, stepping into a waiting car as husband and wife. The mansion is quiet when they return. Inside the grand bedroom prepared for appearances, she pauses at the doorway. The bed is immaculate, untouched, designed for a story they are not living. He stops a few feet away from her. "You will stay here tonight," he says evenly. "I will use the room down the hall." She nods, relieved and strangely disappointed all at once. "There will be questions," he continues. "Speculation. We ignore it." "I understand," she replies. He hesitates, then adds, "You did exactly what was required today." Required. That word settles heavily in her chest. After he leaves, she sits on the edge of the bed and finally allows herself to take off the ring. Just for a moment. It feels heavier in her hand than it did on her finger. This marriage is official now. Legal. Public. But as she lies alone in the silence of the room, she realizes something she did not expect. Pretending to be his wife in front of the world was easy. What scares her is how real everything suddenly feels when no one is watching. And somewhere down the hall, the man she married by contract is beginning to realize that control does not always protect him from what comes next. Life settles into a rhythm neither of them discusses, but both quickly learn. Mornings are quiet. She wakes early, long before the house stirs, moving softly as if afraid to leave a trace. He is usually gone before she finishes breakfast, his schedule precise, his presence measured. Some days, they exchange polite greetings. Other days, they pass each other like strangers sharing a hallway. This is how the contract intended it to be. And yet, the house refuses to stay neutral. She begins to notice things. The way he leaves his coffee untouched when meetings run long. The faint crease between his brows when he reviews documents late at night. The fact that he always loosens his tie the moment he steps inside, as if this place allows him to breathe in ways the world outside does not. He notices things too, though he pretends not to. That she never sits at the head of the table. That she carefully stacks mail instead of throwing it away. That she flinches whenever the phone rings unexpectedly, as if bad news is always waiting on the other end. One evening, he comes home earlier than planned. She is in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, standing over the stove. The scent of something warm and familiar fills the air, out of place among stainless steel and polished stone. She freezes when she hears him. "I did not know you cooked," he says. "I did not know if I was allowed," she replies honestly. The words hang between them. He hesitates, then says, "You do not need permission." She nods, though neither of them believes that completely. They eat together that night, not across a formal table, but side by side at the kitchen island. It is the first time they share a meal without an audience. Conversation comes slowly, cautiously, like testing ice before stepping forward. She talks about nothing important, a grocery store nearby, a book she once loved. He listens more than he speaks. For a moment, it almost feels normal. Then the wall returns. Public life remains demanding. Events fill the calendar. Dinners, fundraisers, meetings where she is expected to smile, stand beside him, and say the right things. She learns how to read a room quickly, how to anticipate his needs without being asked. He notices her ease, her quiet intelligence, the way people respond to her warmth. "You are good at this," he tells her after one event. "This?" she asks. "Being seen," he answers. She looks away. "I learned a long time ago that people see what they want." At night, the mansion grows still. Sometimes she hears him pacing in his room. Sometimes he hears her moving restlessly on the other side of the wall. They are closer than they admit, separated by nothing but intention. One night, she cannot sleep. The memories creep in. The bills, the hospital room, the fear that pushed her to sign her name without knowing what it would cost her later. She sits on the edge of the bed, breathing unevenly, trying to steady herself. A knock breaks the silence. She opens the door to find him standing there, unsure, almost hesitant. "I heard something," he says. "Are you all right?" She considers lying. It would be easier. Instead, she shakes her head. He steps inside, keeping distance, as if reminding them both of the rules. They talk quietly. about stress, about pressure, about the cost of being strong when no one is watching. He does not touch her. He does not fix anything. He listens. When he leaves, the room feels different, less empty. The next day, she realizes something unsettling. The contract did not account for this, for shared silences, for late-night conversations, for the way safety can grow without intention. They were careful to define what they would not do. They forgot to define what happens when two people begin to care without meaning to. And somewhere beneath the rules, beneath the performance, the first cracks are forming. Cracks that will soon test whether this marriage can remain a business arrangement, or whether something real is already beginning to take its place. The turning point arrives without warning. It is late, past midnight. The mansion is quiet in the way only large houses can be, where silence feels intentional rather than peaceful. She is in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, still dressed from the event they attended that evening. It was another public obligation, another room full of smiles and practiced laughter, another night of pretending everything was effortless. This time, something followed her home. Her chest feels tight, her breathing is shallow. The walls seem closer than before. She presses her palms against the mattress, trying to ground herself, but the sensation only grows stronger. She stands, pacing slowly, counting steps without realizing it. 1, 2, 3. Her heart refuses to slow. She does not remember sitting down again, but suddenly she is, head in her hands, breath breaking apart. A knock sounds at the door. She freezes. Then the door opens slightly, careful, respectful. He stands there, concern etched across his usually controlled expression. "I heard you," he says quietly. "Are you unwell?" She shakes her head, then nods, unsure which answer is true. He steps inside, stopping several feet away, as if an invisible line still exists between them. The room feels smaller with him in it, warmer, more dangerous. "I cannot breathe," she says, embarrassed by how small her voice sounds. He does not reach for her. Instead, he speaks, calm, steady. The same voice he uses to lead rooms full of powerful people. "Look at me," he says gently. "Breathe with me." She does. Slowly, her breathing begins to match his. The panic eases, retreating just enough for her to think again. "I am sorry," she says. "This was not part of the agreement." "No," he replies, "but neither was this." He takes one careful step closer, not touching, just close enough that she can feel the shift in the air. "You are safe here," he says. "Nothing is being asked of you." Something in her breaks at those words. The tears come quickly, unexpectedly. She tries to wipe them away, but her hands tremble. Without thinking, she stands, closing the distance herself. They are close now, too close. He hesitates, clearly aware of what this means, of the rules, of the contract that was meant to protect them both. "You should sit," he says, voice lower now. "I do not want to be alone," she replies. The honesty surprises them both. For a long moment, neither of them moves. The space between them feels charged, fragile, as if one wrong decision could shatter everything they built so carefully. He lifts his hands slowly, stopping just short of her arm. "If I cross this line," he says, "there is no pretending it meant nothing." She looks up at him, eyes clear now, steady. "I am tired of pretending," she says. That is when it happens. He leans in, not quickly, not impulsively, but with intention, giving her time to pull away, giving her the choice he never realized she needed. She does not move. Their lips meet in a kiss that is nothing like the one at the wedding. There are no cameras, no expectations, no audience. It is soft, careful, uncertain, and it changes everything. When they pull apart, the room feels different, the air heavier, the rules suddenly distant and irrelevant. He steps back first, as if waking from something dangerous. "That should not have happened," he says. She nods. "I know." But neither of them regrets it. He leaves the room shortly after, the door closing with a quiet finality that feels louder than any argument. She sits on the bed long after he is gone, her hand pressed lightly to her lips, heart racing for reasons that have nothing to do with fear. Somewhere down the hall, he stands in the darkness of his own room, staring at his reflection, realizing something he has avoided for far too long. The contract was supposed to keep this simple, One kiss has made it impossible. And now, there is no way to pretend that this marriage is still just business. The distance between them returns the next morning. It is sharper now, more deliberate. They move through the house on separate schedules, careful not to cross paths. When they do, their conversations remain polite, almost formal. The kiss is never mentioned, not directly, but it lingers in the pauses between words, in the way they avoid looking at each other for too long. What happened cannot be undone, and neither of them knows how to move forward without breaking something else. The pressure comes from the outside. It always does. An emergency board meeting is called late that afternoon. He leaves without explanation, tension visible in the tightness of his jaw. By evening, headlines begin to circulate online. Speculation, rumors, questions about the sudden marriage, the rushed ceremony, the woman no one seems to know. She reads the articles alone in her room, each sentence feeling like a threat. One name appears repeatedly, a senior board member, an influential family connection, someone who has never trusted her presence at his side. At dinner, he finally speaks. They are questioning the marriage, he says quietly. They believe there is something being hidden. Her chest tightens. The contract. He nods. They think it exists. Silence stretches between them. If they find proof, she says slowly, what happens? His answer is honest, and it frightens her. They will claim the marriage is fraudulent. They will say you manipulated me. They will remove you from every public role. She looks down at her hands. And you? I will survive, he replies. They always do. The difference between them has never felt so wide. The next event is unavoidable. A high-profile gala filled with investors and media. Cameras will be everywhere. Absence would only fuel suspicion. That night, as they stand side by side beneath crystal lights, she feels the weight of every glance. Conversations stop when they approach. Smiles feel thinner. Questions are asked with too much curiosity. A woman steps forward, confident, calculated. How charming, she says lightly. You married so suddenly. One wonders how well you really know each other. The room grows quiet. He answers smoothly. Enough. But the woman does not stop. Business thrives on transparency, she adds. Surely there are no agreements behind closed doors. The words land like a blade. She feels it then, the moment he must choose. He could laugh it off, deflect, protect the image. Let her stand alone beneath the doubt. Instead, he reaches for her hand, not for show, for support. My marriage is not a transaction, he says, voice steady, and my wife does not need to justify her place beside me. The room stirs, whispers ripple outward. Later, in the car, the silence is heavy. You did not have to do that, she says quietly. Yes, he replies, I did. When they return home, she stops him before he reaches the hallway. If you keep defending me, she says, they will come for you harder. I know. And if the truth comes out? He looks at her then, really looks at her, the mask gone. Then I will face it. Her heart aches at the certainty in his voice. That night, sleep does not come easily. She understands now what the contract never prepared her for. The danger is no longer in pretending. It is in how much it would hurt to lose what has started to feel real. And somewhere in the house, he is making a decision that will change everything. Not as a billionaire, not as a strategist, but as a man who has already broken the rules once and is no longer willing to pretend that the cost of honesty is too high. The meeting is scheduled for the following morning. No press, no guests, just a long table, familiar faces, and the quiet tension of power waiting to assert itself. She does not know about it at first. He leaves early, jacket pressed, expression unreadable once again. For the first time since the kiss, he does not avoid her eyes before walking out the door. Today might be difficult, he says, but I want you to know something. She waits. No matter what happens, he continues, nothing will be decided without you. The words follow her long after he is gone. By mid-morning, her phone begins to buzz. Messages from people she barely knows. Headlines written carefully, cautiously. The board is reviewing corporate governance. Questions are being raised about transparency and ethics. The contract has not been found, but it is close. She sits alone in the living room, the weight of the situation pressing down on her chest. She knows how this ends if she does nothing. He will protect her publicly until it costs too much. Then the world will decide for them. She stands. For the first time since signing that contract, she makes a decision without fear. The boardroom falls silent when she enters. Conversations stop. Heads turn. He looks up, surprised. Then something softer crosses his face. Relief or pride. A senior member clears his throat. This meeting is not appropriate for her presence. She is my wife, he says calmly. She belongs here. The words steady her. The accusations come quickly after that. Questions about timelines, about motives, about whether the marriage was built on convenience rather than commitment. She listens. She does not interrupt. When the moment comes, she speaks. I signed a contract, she says clearly. Yes, because I was desperate, because I had no safety net, but I did not manipulate anyone. I did not ask for power. I did not ask for money. I asked for survival. The room is quiet. She turns to him then. And he gave me a choice, one that no one else ever did. She reaches into her bag and places a folded document on the table, the contract. Gasps ripple through the room. I am ending it, she says, not because you demanded it, but because I refuse to let it define me anymore. She looks at him. This is where I step away, unless you ask me to stay. Not as an agreement, not as a performance, but as your equal. Every eye shifts to him. For a long moment, he does not move. Then he stands. I built this company on control, he says, on rules and safeguards and calculated risks. But the one thing I cannot calculate is what I would lose if she walked away. He takes the contract from the table and tears it in half. Gasps again, louder this time. There is no agreement, he continues. There is only my choice, and I choose her. The decision is final. By the time they leave the room, the power has shifted. Not because he demanded it, but because he surrendered it. Outside, she exhales shakily. You did not have to do that, she says. Yes, he replies softly. I did. He does not reach for her hand this time. He waits. She steps closer on her own. For the first time since they met, there is nothing between them that needs to be signed, defended, or explained. Only the question that remains. What happens next when love is no longer protected by rules, and whether they are brave enough to find out together? The house feels different when they return that evening, not because anything has changed physically. The walls are the same, the rooms are still vast and quiet, but the silence no longer feels imposed. It feels earned. She removes her shoes near the door, something she has never done here before. He notices, and instead of correcting her, he smiles faintly. It is small, almost unnoticeable, but real. They sit in the living room without urgency, without rules dictating where they should stand or how far apart they must be. The space between them is still there, but it no longer feels like a barrier. I meant what I said, she begins, her voice steady. I would have walked away if you had not asked me to stay. I know, he replies. That is why I had to choose openly. She studies him for a moment. And if this becomes difficult? It will, he answers honestly. But it will be ours. Later that night, he asks her to follow him. Not to a boardroom, not to a formal space meant for appearances, but to a quiet room at the back of the house, one she has never entered before. Inside, the lights are low. On a small table rests a single envelope. This is not a contract, he says, almost smiling at the word. It is an invitation. Inside the envelope is a simple ring. No cameras, no witnesses, no obligations. I am not asking you to stay because it is convenient, he continues. I am asking because I want a life with you, one where you can leave if you choose, and stay because you want to. Tears fill her eyes, but this time they do not fall out of fear. She nods. When he kisses her, it is not careful or restrained. It is warm, certain, unburdened by rules. The months that follow are not perfect. They argue, they learn. She struggles to trust that she will not be discarded when she is no longer needed. He struggles to loosen control in a world that taught him control was survival. But they choose each other daily. The press eventually moves on. The board adjusts. Life settles into something quieter, stronger. One afternoon, she frames the torn contract and places it in a drawer, not as a reminder of pain, but of how far she has come. She did not marry for love. She married to survive, but she stayed because love finally gave her something the contract never did: freedom. And in choosing each other without conditions, they discover the truth neither of them expected: that the strongest commitment is not written on paper. It is made when two people stand side by side, without rules, without fear, and say yes anyway.